there was among the Israelites a very wealthy man who was old. He had nephews who wished that he died in order to inherit his wealth. One of them killed him one night and threw his body in the middle of the way. In another narration, it says that they threw him on the door of a man from among their people. In the morning, the people started disputing about him and who his killer was. The nephew of the dead man came and started crying loudly. Some of them said, "Why are you disputing here and do not go to the Prophet of Allah?" So his nephew went to Musa alayhi salam and complained to him about the murder of his uncle. Musa said, "I ask each one of you in the name of Allah that if he has any knowledge about this, he should inform us." However, none of them knew anything. So the people asked Musa to ask his Lord in this matter. When Musa asked Allah about this matter, he ordered them to slaughter a cow. And remember when Musa said to his people, "Verily, Allah orders you to slaughter a cow." They said, "Do you mean to mock us?" They thought it was a joke because they asked about something and were told to do something seemingly different. Musa said regarding their reply, "I seek refuge in Allah from being among the ignorant." That is, I seek refuge in Allah from conveying something on his behalf that he did not reveal to me. Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, As-Suddi, and others stated, if they had slaughtered any cow, it would have been sufficient. However, they kept on going into details, and thus it was made difficult for them. They then inquired about the characteristics of the cow to be slaughtered. Then they asked about his color, and finally about his age. When Musa gave them the answers to all their questions regarding his description, they said, "Now you have told us the truth." It is said that they did not find a cow with those descriptions except with the man who was obedient to his parents. When they asked him to sell the cow to them, he refused. They kept on alluring him by increasing the price until he agreed to sell it. As-Suddi mentioned that they even offered to pay for its weight in gold, but the man refused. Then he finally sold it to them when he was offered a price 10 times the weight of its gold. So when Musa asked them to slaughter it, they slaughtered it with hesitation. Then Musa ordered them to hit the dead man with some of its meat. When they did that, Allah brought him back to life. When he stood up, Musa alayhi salam asked him regarding his killer. He said, "My nephew killed me." Then he died again. Allah said, "Thus Allah brings the dead to life and shows you his signs so that you may understand." Meaning that this is just like you have seen how Allah brought this person back to life from after his death. Similarly, he will bring back his servants to life on the day of judgment. We now enter into the next section, the story of Musa and Khidr, or if you like, Khadr. Allah the Glorious and Exalted has stated, "And remember when Musa said to his attendant, I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas, or until I spend years and years in traveling. But when they reached the junction of the two seas, they forgot their fish, and it took its way through the sea as in a tunnel. So when they had passed further on beyond that fixed place, Musa said to his attendant, 'Bring us our lunch. Truly, we have suffered much fatigue in this,'" meaning in our journey. He said, "Do you remember when we betook ourselves to the rock? Indeed, The fish was forgotten. None but Shaitan made me forget to remember it. It took its course into the sea in a strange way. He said, this is Musa, that is what we have been seeking. So they went back, retracting their footsteps. There they found one of our servants, on whom we had bestowed mercy from us, from Allah, and whom we had taught knowledge from us, Allah. Musa said to him, may I follow you so that you may teach me something of that knowledge which you have been taught? He said, Khidr, verily you will not be able to have patience with me. And how can you have patience about a thing which you know not? Musa said, if Allah wills, you will find me patient, and I will not disobey you in any matter. He said, then if you follow me, do not ask me about anything until I myself mention of it to you. So they both proceeded till when they embarked the ship, he scuttled it, Khidr, meaning he defected it. Musa said, have you scuttled it in order to drown its people? Have you damaged it in order to drown its people? Verily, you have committed an evil act. He said, did I not tell you that you would not be able to be patient with me? Musa said, do not call me to account for what I forgot, and be not hard upon me for my affair. Then they both proceeded until they met a boy, and he killed him, meaning Khidr killed the boy. Musa said, have you killed an innocent person who have killed no one? Verily, you have committed a prohibited act, an unlawful act. He said, Khidr, did I not tell you that you cannot have patience with me? Musa said, if I ask you anything after this, do not keep me in your company. You have received an excuse from me. Then they both proceeded to when they came to the people of a town. They asked them for food, but they refused to entertain them. Then they found there in a wall about to collapse, and he set it up straight in the Khidr. He readjusted the wall. Musa said, if you had willed, surely you could have taken wages for that. They could have paid you for that. Khidr said, this is the parting between me and you. I will tell you the interpretation of things over which you were unable to hold patience. As for the ship, it belonged to the people working in the sea. So I wish to make it defective, or wish to make defective damage within the ship or upon the ship, as there was a king behind them who seized every ship by force. And as for the boy, his parents were believers, and we feared lest he should oppress them by rebellion and disbelief. So we intended that their Lord should change him for them for one better in righteousness and nearer to mercy. And as for the wall, it belonged to two orphan boys in the town. And there was under it a treasure belonging to them, and their father was a righteous man. And your Lord intended that they should attain their age of full strength and take out their treasure as a mercy from your Lord. And I did not do them of my own accord. That is the interpretation of those things over which you could not hold patience. Some Jewish scholars said that Musa alayhi salam went to Khidr alayhi salam, and the incident occurred with him is not the prophet Musa, but rather someone else called Musa ibn Mansa, ibn Yusuf, ibn Yaqub, ibn Ishaq, ibn Ibrahim. Some Muslim scholars also held this opinion. However, the correct view, supported by clear text of the Quran and Hadith, is that he was Musa ibn Imran, alayhi salam, the prophet who was sent to the children of Israel. Imam al-Bukhari reported Sa'id ibn Jubair saying, I said to Ibn Abbas that Nof al-Bikali claims that Musa who met Khidr is not the Musa who was sent to the children of Israel. Ibn Abbas said, the enemy of Allah has lied. Ubay ibn Ka'b said to me that he had heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, Musa delivered a speech to the Israelites and was asked, who is the most knowledgeable person? Musa said, I am. So Allah reprimanded him, as he did not attribute it to Allah. So Allah revealed to him, I have a servant at the junction of the sea who is more knowledgeable than you. Musa said, my Lord, how can I find him? This is interesting. Even prophets of Allah, messengers of Allah, with all the knowledge Allah granted them, they still will seek knowledge, and they still will travel out to seek knowledge. As the ancients will state, al-ilm yutta wa la yati. Knowledge is to be come to, and it doesn't come to you. He said, take a fish with you in a water-filled vessel, and wherever you lose the fish, the man will be there. So Musa took a fish and put it into a water-filled vessel. He set out and took with him his attendant, Yusha ibn Nun, Joshua. When they reached the rock, they laid themselves down on it and fell asleep. At that time, the fish wiggled its way out of the vessel and was able to fall into the sea. When they woke up, his attendant forgot to tell him that the fish had gone. They then continued their journey for the rest of that day and night. The next day, Musa said to his attendant, bring us our meal. Surely we have suffered much fatigue on this journey of ours. Musa did not feel tired or sleepy until they passed by the rock. His attendant said, did you see when we betook ourselves to the rock? I forgot the fish, and nothing made me forget it but the shaitan. And it took its way into the sea in a strange way. Musa then said, this is what we were seeking. And so they returned, retracing their footsteps. They retracted their footsteps, or they retraced their footsteps. And when they reached the rock, they found a man. Musa greeted him and said, I am Musa. Khidr said, Musa, the son of Israel? He said, yes. And I came to you in order that you teach me from what you have been taught. And this exchange here between Khidr and Musa, and Khidr already having knowledge of Musa and was expecting him in that locale, is indicative of Khidr receiving revelation. For how else would he have that particular knowledge? And we state this because there's a difference of opinion among scholarship whether Khidr was a prophet or whether he was a righteous man. But the indicators, they are inclined to prove him to be a prophet of Allah. He said, surely you will not be able to bear with me patiently. That is, O Musa, I have knowledge from Allah which you do not have, and you will have, and you have what I do not have. Why? They're of different laws. This is a different land where Khidr is residing. Musa said, if Allah wills, you will find me patient, and I will not disobey you in any matter. Khidr said, then if you follow me, do not question me on anything until I myself mention it to you. And so they both departed. They left walking alongside the sea. Then when a ship passed by them, they asked his people to take them aboard. The crew knew Khidr and thus took them on board with no charge. Khidr had good standing amongst the people. When you have good standing amongst the people, they look out for you. When they boarded the ship, Khidr took an axe and took out a plank of the ship. Musa said to him, that they took us on board with no charge, and you did this to the ship so as to drown those that are in it? Verily, you have done an evil thing. He said, this is Khidr, did I not tell you that you would not be able to bear with me patiently? Musa said, do not take me for account for what I forgot, and do not make it difficult for me. The Prophet ﷺ said that this was the interruption by Musa due to forgetfulness. He added, then a sparrow came, and after sitting down on the edge of the ship, dipped its beak once or twice in the sea. Khidr said to Musa, my knowledge and your knowledge, when compared to the knowledge of Allah, are like what the sparrow took out from the sea with his beak. Then they disembarked the ship and started walking along the seashore. At that, Khidr spotted a boy who was playing with other children. He held his head in his hand and plucked it out from his body, thus killing him. This shows the clear strength that Khidr must have had. So Musa said, have you killed an innocent soul who did not kill any soul? And the indication here, and Allah knows best, perhaps he snapped his neck. Allah knows best. Verily, you have done a prohibited thing. Khidr said, did I not say to you that you would not be able to bear with me patiently? Musa said, if I ask you about anything after this, then keep me no more in your company. You have received an excuse from me. So they both departed until when they reached the people of a town, and they asked them for food, but they refused to entertain them. There they found a wall about to collapse, and so he set it up straight, Khidr. Musa said, that is what these very people who we requested for food, that is, you're doing this for the same people that we asked them to feed us, and they refused to feed us. And now you're repairing their wall? If you wanted, you could have taken payment for that. At that, Khidr said, this is the parting between me and you. Now I will tell you the interpretation of that which you could not bear patiently. The Prophet ﷺ said, after narrating this story, we wish Musa could have been patient so that Allah may have told us more about their story. And here seems a suitable place to pause for this week. We are nearing the end of the story of Musa alayhi salam. Perhaps in our next sitting, we'll be able to conclude the entire of Musa's story and enter into the story of Yusha, the story of Joshua. هذا والله أعلم صلى الله عليه وسلم. Questions?
I was amazed at this particular story and the story before that. All this is going
of the cow?
Huh?
The story of the cow? That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
All this is going on right in that area.
That general area.
That Musa is in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's a lot going on as far as the
Mount Tor.
Yeah. I just read about Mount Tor, and they saying that, based on what I read, it's not in Egypt and it's not in Palestine.
In between.
In between.
Yes, on Route 2, right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot going on with Musa in this area.
It's a lot going on. Absolutely right. And looking at how the story is structured, and we can't say this definitively. We don't actually know. But if you start thinking about the signs Musa was given and when to stop, so they're out traveling, right? He's out on this quest for knowledge, and they're near some type of shoreline that they're running up. So you then ask, okay, what body of water are we aware of that would have been in that general vicinity?
You got
And
the Red
it
Sea.
seems like the Mediterranean Sea
Yeah, Red Sea or the
from
Mediterranean.
kind of where they are. Maybe they went down south, but it seems like they were to me that they'll be running around the Mediterranean Sea. And if they're following the line of the Mediterranean Sea, and it doesn't appear in Ronald's best, it doesn't appear that he went back through Africa. It doesn't appear that way. So if they're following the line of the Mediterranean Sea and they're not going around Africa, if you go on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea, you're at the bottom of Europe.
Well,
Is that right?
no, you from Egypt, you got all of that Palestine. You got a big chunk of Palestine before you can get up to. Then you got to go up to what's that? Lebanon, Syria, Turkey. Now you're into Europe.
But the Mediterranean Sea runs on what's on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea?
It's Europe.
Is Europe. So if they're following the line of the Mediterranean Sea and they end up somewhere in Europe when the fish jumps out,
But that's a lot of walking right there. That's what I'm saying.
we don't know how long they were traveling
From Egypt
either.
to all of from Egypt and all of Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of walking right there before you get to the next country, which
Mhm.
is actually Lebanon or
Mhm.
Syria.
Well, we actually don't know exactly how they were traveling. Well, we know they were traveling.
They had no car, no.
No, but there were animals that were ways that they transported themselves, perhaps.
I mean, they had probably a donkey or mule. I don't think they had a horse. Horse is fast,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't. I think they was walking.
You think they were walking, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I say that to say, and this is speculation, so accept it for what it is. But if we're going through the Mediterranean line, if it's this body of water, and Khidr's there, this would be evidence that the people of Europe had a prophet that was sent to them if they're in Europe. And if we're talking about the Red Sea going down south, now we're talking about the African shorelines. So, and that would mean that the African peoples had a prophet sent to them who's Khidr. So either I'm thinking down the line of the Red Sea or around the Mediterranean Sea. So either Khidr potentially was a prophet of Europe or a prophet of Africa. Allah
I
knows
think
best.
he was a prophet to give a lesson to Musa alayhi salam, and to give a parable. It's a great story,
It is a great story.
and that's it. I
Mhm.
don't look at him as a prophet of Africa or Europe. He just happens to be in the Quran, and
He had to have been somewhere.
Musa
And
was kind of naughty or arrogant, thinking he know everything, and Allah is giving Musa an example.
well, we can talk about that, but he also has to be in a place um, where the technology has advanced enough that they have naval fleets, and where there are kings who are readily operating on the sea to the point that there's piracy and to the point that they're overtaking the other ships that are on the sea. And then what area is this kind of taking place at more frequently in other places? The indicators see the same. But one of the understandings here concerning when the people ask Musa, who is the most knowledgeable, and he says himself, this isn't necessarily him posturing to be better than anyone else. He's just saying, based on the knowledge that he has, I don't know anybody who knows more than me because I'm receiving revelation, right?
Well, he just finished talking to God, Allah, so you kind of got some swagger from that.
Barakallah feek.
So yeah. So Joshua, he stays with him this whole time when he's with what's the other brother name? Kadir.
Khidr.
Kidra.
Uh-huh.
How you pronounce his name?
Khidr.
Kidra.
Kidr.
Kidra.
Yeah, Kidr. But the it's Khidr or Khadr, right? So Kha, Dad, Ra,
Yeah,
right?
that's how I
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep it pronounced either way. But yeah. So interestingly, in the story, I mean, because Yusha was traveling along with Musa, we would have to posit that he continued in traveling with them. They're not going to get there, and he just stays there, presumably. But because that wasn't relevant to the story, he's not mentioned anymore, right? From that point on in that particular story. So long. Not bad, Fluffy.
Yeah, and also I read that you know who you're not gonna talk about Musa's wife, huh?
No.
Zip Zip Ora. You familiar with her?
Well, what did you came across something?
Her name was Zip Ora,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a medium.
Okay.